invite everyone to come to the sanctuary. The afternoon program is going to start in 5 minutes. Please join us in the sanctuary. Those who are still in the fellowship hall, please come. Hello, hello. May and Shirley, may I invite you to come over to start with the opening song? Song number 88. Opening song, number 88. Hello. Please, everyone, please join us here. Don't stay. Don't stay around. Please come. The program will start in a couple of minutes. As you all know, Dr. Craig has been with us last year, and today, with popular demand, I invited him to come again, and he's here today. He will bring us a new topic, and that will be beneficial to every one of us. Dr. Craig is a familiar professor at Loma Linda University. He is the director of dietetics internship program at Andrew University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, where he has taught health and nutrition classes since 1987. But now he retired from Andrew, and he's now still teaching at Loma Linda University. Every year he comes here from Walla Walla in the winter, because he has a winter class at the School of Public Health. And so every year we have a privilege to invite him here. So we are expecting that he will come here every year to give us an update on the health and nutrition field. And today he will give us, his topic is a green and healthier life for you and your family. Dr. Craig, I invite you to come to the podium at this moment where you are. Welcome. His wife cannot be with us today because she has a little bit of bronchitis. Let's have a word of prayer. Our most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your Sabbath day. Thank you for your love. Thank you for the message of health that you have been giving to us. Every single time we hear messages from professors, doctors, that's the message from you. Today, it's the same thing. We will hear a message from Dr. Craig, which is a message of health from you. We pray that his wife will getting better soon, because we trust that your healing hand will touch her and restore her health. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, we covered this morning. Thank you for surviving the luncheon. That was very difficult, wasn't it, to survive that? I hear people come from around the place just for the lunch. I would too. But coming from Walla Walla may be a little far every Sabbath. But they know how to... Thank you for those of you who prepared the food. And the bread was really good. You don't find good bread like that everywhere. I like my bread along with some other good dishes there. So we left that this morning, and I want to also pay tribute to the AV people. You know, sometimes it's the unseen people that are very important, and you wouldn't hear me. You wouldn't know what I'm saying if it wasn't for the AV. You don't see them. They're back there quietly, but my hat is off to them. Thank you. And for the invitation to come. So, you know, we don't talk so much about health today as we do wellness. Wellness is kind of more of a global word that people are more comfortable with. And some of you are familiar with 8 Natural Remedies, New Start program. You know that? Well, Mrs. White was in the 19th century, and we live in the 21st century. So, you know, truth is not locked only in the 19th century. We have to take people where they're at. And I believe there's some new, not new, but some extra emphases of certain things. And I've starred them there. This is my new start. It's not copyrighted or anything. And if you want to take it down, that's fine. But my wellness, you're familiar with these things. Water, exercise, keeping your life in balance. You know, that might be temperance. Loving relationships. You know, that's one that starred. You know, we now know the importance of what we showed you this morning of social connectedness, right? It's good that we not only have vertical relationships, but horizontal. If you don't have a woman doesn't have friends, she's got nothing. You know, we need social connectedness. Nutrition, mental outlook. Okay, this is another one I starred. These are not in the 8 natural remedies, but believe me, if Mrs. White was writing today, she would have these in there. Positive mental outlook. She wrote a wonderful chapter on mind cure and ministry of healing. But like I said this morning, the challenges to mind health, mental health today are greater than I've known for a long, long time. So we have to emphasize it. So that's why we've got it there as an E, engage a positive mental attitude. Sleep, rest, and stress management. Is there ever a time when we more need stress management than today? I need it just driving here from Loma Linda, dealing with the traffic through Corona. Whew. But even dealing with the day-to-day life issues of balancing budget and family relationships and all the stuff, life has got very complicated. So this is just another way of saying natural remedies. And I hope you'll forgive me if I've kind of added a little bit to what Ellen White had, but I just feel we have to update it to the stresses and the challenges that we face today. There was a book written recently, I don't know, some of you read it, What's Missing in Medicine. I got it at Barnes & Noble recently and started reading, and she lists these 6 things. You know, it's basically a natural lifestyle, is the things we're talking about. So it isn't just Adventists. There are people out now in the world who are realizing the value of all these simple natural things that we can apply. They don't cost anything. Well, you don't have to pay anything. You can follow these, exercise. You know, we go every day for about 3-mile walk up around the south side hills there. You can do the same here, or whatever. Clean water, fresh air, trusting God. Okay, so that's the background. Okay, we did all that this morning. Balanced life so that mentally, physically, spiritually, socially, we're together. Now we want to talk about anti-inflammatory diets, particularly. A program which will lead for all of you in this room to have a healthier and happier future. Very simple. I can't say it costs you nothing because you have to buy foods at the grocery store. Okay, that's a given. Now, this plant-based diet, which even that doctor that I just showed you, not an Adventist, but she obviously is convicted by what she reads, pushes a plant-based diet. And what is about a plant-based diet that is good? Well, the saturated fat, which is associated with heart disease and other problems, is low. Cholesterol level is low, and if you're a total plant-based, it's 0. People who eat plant-based are generally eating more fruits and vegetables, and there's nobody anywhere in the world. It's wonderful today to be a nutrition scientist because everybody agrees on fruits and vegetables. Eat more. We don't eat enough. You know, the average American eats 3 servings a day, and we're supposed to eat 10. And a serving is not a plate. I was lecturing one time, and somebody put their hand up and said, 10 servings, I can't eat that, that's a lot. Well, it's 10 servings, not plates. And it's all during the day, not all day long, but at your specified meals. You know, you just think of what you had for breakfast. You know, I had strawberries, blueberries, a banana, an orange. That was just breakfast. You know, and then what did I have here? A plate of strawberries and melons and pineapple and on it goes. Just, you know, it's wonderful. So these are full of vitamins and minerals. So if you're eating an animal-based diet, you get B vitamins, but you may not get all these other ones. People often use a lot of soy. And I'm not saying overdo it, but soy does have some special properties. These phytochemicals called isoflavones, they are special in that they reduce number of chronic diseases, but that's a whole nother lecture. I can't get sidetracked into that, but certainly Soy has benefits. And then the thing about plants is fiber, 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 fiber. Whole grains, fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables, everything's got fiber. And fiber is feeding your bacterial gut. We call it the microbial flora. And people are seeing today now that the health of your microbes in your gut, and there's more of them there than you have cells in the body. These microbes not necessarily determine, but they certainly regulate your health. Your immune health, your mental health, your physical health are very important. And how do we keep them healthy? Feed them. And what do they live on? Fiber. So you eat plant foods and your microbes will be a lot healthier. We'll say a little bit more about that later. And then phytochemicals. This lecture is all about phytochemicals, but I didn't want to announce it that way because nobody had come. Phytochemicals. David, how boring. Chemicals. Who wants to learn about chemicals? Well, these are the most exciting things in your diet. What you looked at today, yellows and reds and greens and purples and blues, those colours, those pigments are just different families of phytochemicals. And these phytochemicals have been researched now for 20, 25 years. And you see how many there are? Do you see the number there? 20K. We don't know them all because there are many in the different. We know the family types, and we'll mention those to you, not to prove that I'm a scientist, but to show you how great God is. Because God is a God of beauty. Our food is beautiful. He's a God of variety, creativity, and you'll see it there. He didn't put a magic ingredient in meat or dairy or soya bean or anything else. The nutrition, these phytochemicals are scattered everywhere. So the important 101 class point is what? Eat variety. Right there? Okay. And the results of that sort of plant-based diet is it's healthful, it's nutritionally adequate if it's properly selected. It can prevent prevent disease as well as treat certain diseases. And it's good for the whole life cycle, from children all through adult, pregnant women, lactating women, the whole lot. There's no, with exception. No, there's no exception. You can use it all through the life cycle. And even athletes. It's another lecture. I could tell you, I could rattle off all the Wimbledon champions and Ironman athlete champions and go down the list. Vegetarian. They aren't wimps. I've been hiking in many places. I remember recently in the Alps in Switzerland. And I'm walking up and passing all these people 30, 40 years younger than myself. And I've people say, you're a skinny guy, you're nothing to you. They're blowing you over. Well, on the trails, the plant-based diet seems to give me endurance at least. I don't know, it seems to work. So let people give you the idea that you don't get strong unless you're eating something other than plant. Anyway, this is all in a scientific publication that I wrote a few years ago for the National Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Peer-reviewed, hundreds of references, you can read it all there. So let me just introduce to you now before we get going on the inflammatory diet. We live in extremes, politically, church-wise and other things. All the Democrats sit over here and all the Republicans sit over here. Not really, but it seems like that sometimes at churches. People are not talking. And you have the right wing and you have the left wing, or whatever you want to call them. Labels don't matter to me. We're all sons and daughters of God, praising the Lord. But we have some people who say, don't give me all these health rules and regulations, right? I'm not worried about all that. Don't give me all these restrictions. We're saved by grace, aren't we? We're not saved by gym workouts and vegan meal plans. You get it? There are some people that have their checklists. On the other hand, there's the other guys, Mr. Legalist, who says, I'm so focused and rigidly emphasizing health for spiritual life. I've got my checklist. I've got to do all these things. We call this righteousness by fork and spoon, or perfection by pedometers. I think you get the point I'm making. Those are the extremes, okay? We don't want to be in either extreme. We don't care, or we just do things because we legally have to check things off. That's not what God wants. God wants us to be happy and healthy and enjoy life, not following checklists. That's not for me. So we have to use our minds to think and read and study and assimilate and follow the middle, down the middle, not either extreme, careless or too overly focused. To be focused is good, but not overly focused. Okay, so this brings us to my story of phytochemicals, which today, if you go into the Barnes & Noble or into the grocery store, you'll often see a special magazine, a special booklet, $15 on anti-inflammatory diets. If you're interested, you can buy one. I don't get any royalties from it. I didn't have anything to do with it, but it's just popular. This is what people are thinking and studying now, because what they have discovered is underlying most of the chronic diseases that we face is inflammation. And if you can live a lifestyle and eat a diet which is anti-inflammatory, that's going to be for our protection. So that's what this lecture is all about. We want to eat these inflammation-fighting compounds, substances. We call them phytochemical. Phyto means plant, and chemicals, you know what they are. So these are substances in plant foods that God put there for us. They also have another purpose, in that they often prevent microorganisms or other things from taking away the life of the plant. But when we eat them, we get the benefit of, and where do we find them? They're all through the plants, and very commonly they're with colour. But don't think only colour, because cauliflower and tofu and radish, they're all white. And you might say, I'm not going to eat them. But it doesn't only go with colour, because those three things that I mentioned are also rich in phytochemicals. So eating your plants is important, but colour is a good kind of green flag that warns you that this is good stuff, okay? So coloured fruits and vegetables, you can see the choices there, plenty choices. So colour means protection, and I'll just give you, we're getting some bullets here. Colour, okay? Brown and black and red and all the rest of the colours of human beings make life beautiful, doesn't it? And it's the same with food. And when you peel things, you often discard the colour. And it's interesting that the outer leaves of vegetables have the highest content of phytochemicals. Why? Because these phytochemicals protect the plant from solar radiation. So when we prepare the vegetable, don't rip off all the outer leaves because they look a bit mealy or snail-eaten or something. Try to recover some of them because you don't want to throw out. The same with skins of fruit. If the fruit is coloured like peaches and nectarines, that's fine. But if they're white like pears and apples, then a lot of the phytochemicals are in the skin. And you'll say, I don't want to eat the pesticides. Well, buy organic or rinse them. You can buy in the store now these sprays that you can let them soak, and that takes care of them. Or when you go shopping, look around and make sure they aren't too contaminated. The skins of nuts. Don't eat blanched almonds and blanched everything. The little brown pellicle, as we call it, the thin skin around the outside, is where a lot of the phytochemicals are. I'm not saying just eat the skins, but don't leave the skins off. Okay, the same with the beans. Reds, yellows, browns, all the different colours. They're all pigments, they're all antioxidants, they're all phytochemicals that protect us. So eating a serving of beans every day is good for that. Same with oil, extra virgin oil, the bright green colour. It's rich in phytochemicals. And don't ever buy pure olive oil, because it's not pure. Food industry have a way of tricking people. Pure means it's highly refined, and then they add back a bit of virgin oil to give it colour. Makes me angry when I see the tricks that they do. But use the virgin or extra virgin, and that gives you all the phytochemicals that are there. And grains, the outside of the grain is where 70-80% of the phytochemicals are. So when you refine it and turn brown rice to white rice, or brown wheat to white wheat, what are you doing? You're removing the germ and the bran, and there goes 90% of your fiber, 3/4 of your phytochemicals, a lot of vitamins and minerals. So the whole wheat bread is certainly going to be the best. And this is just to give you some numbers. Quercetin is an antioxidant that's in lettuce. Notice the different levels in the outer leaves versus that nice, delicious, firm heart. Doesn't have much, 3 to 8. Wheat, whole wheat, look at the number of ferulic acid is another potent antioxidant. Look at the number, 500. White wheat, 40. You see how things are depleted when you refine them? The nuts, walnuts, in the skin around the outside, you see how many? When you blanch them, 95% of them are gone. Okay? So you get the message. Colour is important, and virgin oil, again, is full of these phytochemicals that protect us. Okay, I'm glad I'm showing you this after lunch and not before lunch, because if it was before lunch, I would lose it, because some of these are my favourite foods here, mangoes and avocados. It's hard to go through the day or the week without something from here, but you can see the references. These are scientific papers where they've identified health-promoting phytochemicals, antioxidants that protect us. So when you eat these, you get the phytochemicals and you are protected against cancer, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever it is. They're all different. But as written across the top, there's a variety. All the different names, different things, are all antioxidant polyphenolics that have anti-inflammatory activity. Okay, so whole foods are best. This is a paper that came out just last year and another one this year. Almost 60% of the calories in America comes from ultra-processed foods, rich in sugar, salt, fat, and refined flours. Over 50 studies over the past 5 years have found what? Eating too much of these ultra-processed foods is associated with what? See all those bullets? Eating too much refined foods, high in fat, sugar, and salt, and low in nutrition, increases the risk of obesity, cardiovascular disease, lipid levels that are off the chart, diabetes, etc. So clearly we need to be avoiding these, and this was taken off the web. This young lady, she's a registered dietitian, a doctor, and she is on the British media urging people to get rid of all these ultra-processed foods, soft drinks, caffeinated drinks, etc., sugar-laden things, for fresher alternatives. So this is the very core of what we're saying. Inflammation is how we react to injury or infection, and in chronic inflammation, the immune system is overreactive, and there are certain chemicals that are signaling molecules secreted by the immune cells that affect this inflammation process. And the important point that I want for you to remember is here in yellow. Inflammation underlies all these diseases we've been talking about. And what can we do to keep those processes under our belt, so to speak? By being relaxed, not stressed, and by eating correctly and exercising and other healthful characteristics. So the berries, loaded with anthocyanins, the purples, the blues, and the reds. Good stuff. Okay? Should have a serving of berries every day on your cereal or whatever you want. Plums, cherries are included. Somebody yelled out to me, anybody for cherry pie? Well, the cherries have this pigment, which is one of the most potent antioxidants in all the food we eat. Okay, so plums, cherries, berries. The grapes, again, have pigments, antioxidant pigments, to decrease blood clots. And these anti-inflammatory compounds protect against cancer. The big compound that was talked about recently, resveratrol. You may have heard of that. It's in wine. You know where it came from? The grape juice. Where did the grape juice come from? The grapes. And the grapes got it from the skins, largely. So all this touting about wine, why don't you just go to the grocery store and buy your kilogram of grapes? The purple grapes have more than the green grapes, but any grapes will be good. Pomegranates. Oh, these are good. These are the fruit that were on the tree of life. It wasn't an apple, it was a pomegranate. And there's a whole history behind that, and I don't want to get sidetracked. But each pomegranate has, 628 arils, these little seeds, we call them arils. That's what the Jewish people believe. 628 or 24, whatever it is. What does that mean? That's how many laws the Israelites had from the Old Testament, 624. So these are special foods. They have one aril, one seed for every law. That's what makes them magical. And Solomon put pictures of them up on the temple, remember? The pomegranates. Anyway, that's all history and mythology or whatever. But come back to 2024, it's a great food, not just at holiday time, but all through the year, because the juice of the pomegranate has anti-inflammatory, anti-tumor properties, and it kills cancer cells. This is a recent study that showed it can actually help lower your blood pressure and lower your cholesterol. Okay, because of these antioxidant phytochemicals. You see the names, flavonoids such as ellagic acid and catechins. As little as 2 ounces a day of juice can make a difference. It's worth it, isn't it? It's not all that expensive to buy half a litre and drink 2 ounces every day. Soy, we've already mentioned the value of soy. It protects against breast cancer and prostate cancer. Some people say, oh, but if you've had cancer, it'll inflame it and all that. The data is not really there. The people who promote that are not true to the science. If you look at the story of Asian American women, we choose Asian American women. Why? Because Caucasian women don't eat much soy. The Asian American women eat more soy because that's their culture. Isn't that true? Chinese, Indonesian, Filipino, what have you, they like their tofu. I must have a bit of Filipino in me because I love tofu. And you can see here those who are eating tofu almost every day, what is their risk of breast cancer? Well, the top one is those who are not less than once a month, basically no tofu. Okay, scientists always put that as 1. So those who are eating tofu almost every day, what's their risk of breast cancer? What's their risk? Well, it's from 1 all the way down to 0.7. So that means it's 30% less. Is that valuable? It seems like it to me. And if they were born outside the United States, it's 50% less. Oh, so it's a curse to be born in America. No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying that children who were born outside, how were they raised? They were raised with this product, so when they came to the United States, they become adults. And the research has shown that if you start eating tofu before and during puberty, you have more protection against breast cancer than if you started eating tofu when you were 40 or 35, okay? So is it too early to start? This is the message that's hard to get across to young people when you're teaching health. Oh, I'm healthy and active, and I can sit up late, and well, it catches up with you sooner or later. So the teacher or health message is always, it's never too early to start, because the way we cast the die as a teenager influences the outcome during adult. What about nuts? Are nuts good for us? Nuts are loaded with phytochemicals. Here we've just listed some of them. Total flavonoids are a big family of phytochemicals that are powerful antioxidants. You see, all the nuts, they have something in them. Resveratrol, that's the one we mentioned before, that protects against cancer. And proanthocyanidins, these are the pigments that are in berries, and you can see they're also in a lot of nuts. So eat your nuts. They lower your cholesterol, lower your cancer risk. Which one is the best? Almonds, walnuts, pistachios, macadamias? Which is the best? Though they all have some value, and let's not get nitpicking about whether one's 10% better than the other. The important thing to do is what? Eat them, exactly. Whatever your favorite is. If I was to promote one and most of you didn't like it, I've lost the message. But choose one you like, eat it. It's good, full of phytochemicals. Tomatoes, okay? This is research done at Loma Linda. Eating tomatoes every day, men, your prostate cancer risk decreases 40%. And it's not only tomatoes. What's the colour of tomatoes? Red. Are there other red fruits? Well, we've listed the ones down the bottom that have the same pigment, which is called lycopene. I'm sure you've seen that word around, lycopene. There it is, lycopene. It's in guava, watermelon, papaya, pink grapefruit. So if you don't like tomatoes, and my neighbour doesn't, I say, I don't know how you can not like tomatoes, but there are other choices. Oops, hit it twice. Okay, so here's the list I threatened you with, okay? And the good news is, David, there's no test at the end of this hour. No test. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to try to memorize all these, but if you read magazines from the grocery store, or you buy things from Barnes & Noble or online, Amazon or something, and you read and you see these names, these are becoming household names because scientists are talking about them now more and more. And you see carotenoids are in the fruits and vegetables that are yellow, like squash and pumpkin and peaches and nectarines. Curcumins are in the ginger family, okay? Turmeric. Do you know, if I were to ask, does garlic have any health promoting value? I would say 99% of the audience would raise their hand. If I was to ask the same thing about turmeric, I might get 3 or 4 hands go up. But let me tell you, turmeric has just as much positive research about it as garlic does. Turmeric is the sleeping goody-goody. He has powerful anti-inflammatory properties, okay? So I'm not saying you swallow pills of turmeric. I'm saying use it in your cooking. It makes your tofu and your rice go yellow, doesn't it? Makes it good. Good flavour. I mean, who am I to be telling you this? So we're not going to go down the list, but if you do go down the list, and I want to ask you, so which is the most important food? You scan around there and try to figure out which is the most important food to make sure I get the phytochemicals. And you would say to me, yes. Yes. In other words, the goodness is scattered everywhere. Variety, grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, okay? It's there. So that's the key, variety, because there's tens of thousands of phytochemicals and they all help each other to protect us. Just looking at this, it makes me feel hungry. It's just, the colour is so dazzling. I mean, isn't that part of eating? We eat with our eyes. If the table looks good, the food is going to taste good. My wife always says that when we have guests. You've got to put colour around everywhere, because even if the food's a bit not as good as I thought, they'll think it's good because it's so gorgeous. Oops, I'm really messing up here. What have I done? I'm a little over-energetic and hit the button too. No, I thought we missed one. Okay, this one. I put this Nutrition 101. What's Nutrition 101? That's the entry-level college course, isn't it? And this is so basic. And it says whole foods are the best. They're the best. Because once you start fragmenting or fractioning food, what are you doing? You're usually laying aside the colour and the antioxidants. We should be eating more foods nearly as possible in their natural state so that we get all the phytochemicals. Well, what's the typical American diet? You know, nutrition books call it SAD, the Standard American Diet. And what's it spell? You got it, yeah. What does it contain typically? I've got a list for you to cheat here, to look at. There's usually not enough fruits and vegetables. Not good. They don't eat whole grains. They're eating white rice, white flour, white bread. A lot of junk food, you know. Stuff like you see over here, high in sugar. And they're eating too much animal protein instead of plant protein. The beans and the legumes, the lentils, give you the phytochemicals and the better type of fat. Plant fat's a lot healthier than animal fat. Okay, so this is the problem. Now someone might say, what about cooking? Does cooking destroy the phytochemicals? That would be bad news, wouldn't it? We'd have to eat everything raw. And it's nice to have cooked and raw, and some of each. Well, the Brussels sprouts family, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, are rich in phytochemical we call glucosinolates, and these get metabolized to isothiocyanates, and these are protective against cancer. Now notice what we say, these are stable in the refrigerator for a week. Cooking by steaming, microwaving, stir fry did not cause significant loss. Sure, there's some loss, but it isn't like more than 5 or 10%. Okay, so you don't have to worry. But if you do boil with lots of water, you could leach them out. So you use gentle cooking methods, and everything is preserved. But of course, you're not going to cook your blueberries, are you? I mean, there are some things we eat raw anyway, but things like cauliflower or cabbage, you could eat raw or cooked. You have a choice. You can do either one or the other. When you cook something, you're going to lose your vitamin C. When you eat raw, you get all the vitamin C. So, you know, that red pigment in tomatoes, when you cook the tomato, the amount that your blood, the absorption of it, goes up like twice or 3 times, goes up. So eating your tomato in an entree or something where it's been cooked, that red pigment is going to be more absorbable. So people who say we should only eat raw foods, cooked food's bad for us. No. I can give you many examples where cooked food is an advantage. So it's good to have variety. Some raw, some cooked. Don't worry about losing your phytochemicals. You'll make up for it some other way. Now I told about a gut, and I just want to give you this quickly. The diet influences your gut microorganisms, which impacts inflammation and the immune system. Depending on the composition of the diet, it can either inhibit, that is the diet, or stimulate inflammatory pathways. Plant-based foods help with the immune system. Animal foods will inflame. We'll show you that. Plant fiber, we told you, is food for the gut, the organisms that live there. It's food for that. And they metabolize it into, can you see that there? Short-chain fatty acids. And two of them are butyrate and propionate. Two names of these things that are metabolized from fiber. Fiber makes butyrate and propionate. And what do these two things do? They help with the production of, inhibits the production of pro-inflammatory things. So the things that tend to cause inflammation, what does this metabolite of fiber do? Goes, inhibits it, prevents it from going. Okay? Propionate suppresses the activity of pro-inflammatory. So these fiber metabolites are doing this to inflammation. So when you eat food with lots of fiber, the gut is metabolizing the fiber, producing compounds that are saying, inflammation, back off. Okay? On the other hand, animal foods with choline, carnitine, and betaine, like meat, fish, eggs, so forth, they produce the gut microbiota or the microflora in the gut. They produce a compound which is ultimately oxidized. We call it TMAO. And what is this associated with? Compounds that form, notice this word here, pro-inflammatory. So it's saying the animal products are doing this to the inflammation. Come on, baby, come on, come on. That's as simple as it is. The metabolism of fiber, the metabolism of the animal substance we mentioned there are encouraging the inflammation processes. So, last year when I spoke here, this was my lecture. Let food be your medicine. We could give the same lecture, just different chapter. Same story, but different chapter. And this is what we spent the whole hour on last time, just to remind you. I'm a teacher, and review is very important before the final exam. So we want to make sure you don't forget what we said last year. What was it we said last year? These are 3 major chronic diseases in America, and an X in there means that it's effective, it works, it helps. So here's the main food groups, plant food groups. I've put fruits and vegetables together, which is really a no-no, but they're so similar in their effects. Legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and then we talked about herbs and spices, like turmeric and garlic and so on. What do you notice about that chart? Is there any missing box? No. In other words, all the food groups are beneficial for all those chronic diseases. Okay, that's your review session from last year. Now, what's the meaning of all that I've said today about the phytochemicals and the anti-inflammatory foods that we can eat? Well, the plant-based diet, this is what I wrote up now, it's 15 years ago, I guess. Plant-based diet is associated with lower blood lipid levels. We want that. And because of that and other factors, heart disease mortality is suppressed. Blood pressure and hypertension is suppressed. Rates of type 2 diabetes is less. Body weight, body mass index, a measure of overweight, is less. And cancer rates, not all cancers, but some of them. Now, does that sound like a win-win-win situation? I hope so. So this is what eating substantially a plant-based diet can do for us. Now, this is from the Adventist Health Study mostly. These next pictures I just want to quickly flash through to illustrate that chart that I just showed you. Here's the body weight. Okay, you'll notice non-vegetarian, lacto-ovo-vegetarian, and totally plant-based. And you'll notice what happens to the body weights. The mean is less. So as you eliminate animal products, your body weight tends to be less. On my web page, say this quietly, I have more hits from Beverly Hills than I do from Loma Linda. What does that tell me? Who's interested in plant-based diets to look good, to look cool? This is the Adventist health study. It shows that lacto-ovo tend to be about, this is 15 pounds, and plant-based, totally plant-based, tend to be about 30 pounds lighter than non-vegetarians. Okay, what about heart disease? This is a British study, and the British study, omnivores, lacto-vegan, the same thing. Risk of heart disease, the more you push off the animal foods, the lower your risk. This is a study done across 52 countries. They compared people with a typical Western diet with a typical Pruden diet or a Pruden diet. The Western diet was rich in fried foods, meats, sweet desserts, and the Prudent diet, more fruits and vegetables. And what did they find? Those that had the typical Western diets, what happened to their risk of heart disease? Up 35%, and those that were eating more fruits and vegetables, the risk went down 30%. Okay, blood pressure. What's the data in blood pressure? Well, these columns represent, in the red, they represent comparison of groups with high blood pressure. And then we know that one of the major factors with high blood pressure is being overweight. So we have a way of adjusting the data to take care of that overweight factor and then look at what's left. And so perhaps that's the best thing to look at, the blue. And we put the non-vegetarian at 100%, and you'll see again that same scale. Blood pressure decreases as the animal foods are diminished. Okay, now here's relative risk of cancer in Adventist. Again, Adventist health study data. For cancer, not a huge difference, 8%, the difference amongst Adventists, and you can see for different organs, it's colon is more pronounced than it is for the more hormonal organs like prostate and breast cancer. And I just wanted to share with you one of the benefits of being retired is you can help other people. And 1 year after I retired, I was invited to Argentina, and I worked with a group there in the School of Medicine at UAP, Universidad de Plata, just out of Buenos Aires, about 4 hours. And Fabio and his wife Sandy, who are listed here, were analysing men in terms of their lifestyle and their risk of prostate cancer, and I would just focus on prostate. And you'll notice those that were eating meat regularly, 2.5 times increased risk of prostate cancer. Eat a lot of fatty foods, same thing. Family history, you'd expect. Okay, that's above the red line. Now below the red line, what do you notice? The risk is less than 1, it's decreased. The others were increased, 2.5, 3 times. These are decreased. Eating regularly fruit, only 1/3 the risk. Eating red fruit, about 1/4 the risk. Eating vegetables, about 1/2 the risk. And being physically active 3 times a week, again, only half the risk. So what does this mean? Does lifestyle make a difference to prostate cancer, what we eat and whether we exercise? Yes. This was a big study reported while I was in Argentina, actually. The World Health Organization said that processed meats, and we've listed them here, sausage, salami, ham, hot dogs and so forth, 50 grams a day can increase your risk of colorectal cancer, that's cancer of the bowel, by 18%. The scary part about it was the World Health Organization classified processed meat as a group 1 carcinogen. What does that mean? Well, asbestos and tobacco are group 1 carcinogens. So eating processed meat is equivalent to smoking. A study done by the National Institutes of Health, 500,000 people, this is a lot of people, middle-aged people. They found that those who eat a lot of red and processed meat increased risk of cancer, heart disease, and overall mortality. The data is just overwhelming in favour of plant foods protect us. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and all their phytochemicals protect us. Diabetes, you again see the protection. There's an Adventist health study, you see this, AHS. Dr. Lee and Sabate, I think Dr. Sabate's been here and spoken to you. You can see that the plant-based have much lower, third the risk, or here's about 40% less risk. Again, processed meats, double the risk from eating regularly 3 ounces a day, doubles the risk of getting diabetes. Does the average person know that? What do they know? Stop eating too much refined carbohydrates, right? That's the cause of diabetes. But the major cause of diabetes is being overweight. Maturity onset diabetes. And how do people get overweight? One of the reasons, there's many, but one of them is they eat a lot of refined foods, high in calories and low in fibre. The very opposite to what we're trying to suggest you do now. Eat whole foods and with a lot of fibre, and you'll be protected. Well, this was an interesting study. A friend of mine from Stanford published this just last year. And this was a twin study. Now, this is just a picture off the internet. This is not the guys in the study. I just wanted to tell you what twins look like, okay? I thought you might have forgotten. Okay, so here they identified 22 identical twins. That's the important point. These are identical twins. Average age 40 and their average body weight. They consumed one of two things, a healthy plant-based diet or a meat-based diet. Do you get the picture? Twins. One of them is assigned to eating omnivorous diet and the other one is assigned to a plant, and they go down the whole 22 pair and they split them, one over here and one over there. So you have one camp eating omnivore diet and the other camp eating only plant-based, and they're all matched in terms of twins. And then you teach them, you give them food for 4 weeks like they're in the camp. Why are they teaching them and giving them food? Because they want to instruct them what to eat. They want to eat healthy meat-based diet and a healthy plant-based diet, because you can be eating only plant-based and it can be unhealthy. You can be eating candy and white bread and sodas. They're all plant-based diets, but they're not healthy. So they made sure they were eating healthy on both sides of the camp. And then after 4 weeks, they let them take care of their own cooking, following the principles they'd showed them. After 8 weeks, they checked them out. And do you think there was any difference after only 8 weeks? Not likely, really, but they did. This is what they found. Their lipid, the LDL cholesterol, which is your bad guy, decreased almost 14 points on the plant-based diet compared to the other diet. Their insulin decreased 3 units. Their body weight decreased about 4 pounds, more in the vegan group than in the omnivore group. So even just doing it for 8 weeks, not eating junk food but eating healthfully from each group, made a difference. I thought that was an interesting study. Now, some of you have heard of the CHIP program. You know the CHIP program? Well, there have been reports of it. Some were done in Australia and New Zealand. 836 were in this study, and in America, of course, a lot more because it's been going along, over 5,000. And these are the results they get. And what is this program? eating a plant-based diet for 1 month, 30 days. Just 1 month. It's not very long, is it? Some of you are in your 80s and 1 month is like a breath of fresh air. It's nothing. And yet look at the differences. The body weight that changes, the blood pressure, systolic and diastolic, and the cholesterol. Everything goes down like 5, 10, 15%. The challenge is to stick at that. You know, they're in this program, but can they stick at it? At Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the most internationally famous heart clinics, Dr. Esselstyn did an experiment with 200 people, 198 to be exact, average age 63, and he got them to follow a plant-based diet. Okay, and he followed them for 3.7 years. Okay, so they weren't eating animal products, they were eating plant-based products. What did he find? Okay, now I'll have to tell you this because I don't want you to put your hand up and say, "Oh, get out of here." That's not true. Okay, most scientists, when they report things, they always want to show you their best. Okay, it's like when you have a visitor to come to your house, you don't want to see clothes all over the floor and the dirty linen hanging in the back room and the toilet not clean and stuff. You want them to see the best. Okay, so this is the best. And this is an angiogram of the artery of the heart before the experiment and after. Okay? This is before. And what do you notice about the artery here? Very, very narrowed. These were serious people needing help, either a stent or a bypass problem. This is the result in one of the guys after 32 months. What do you notice? 32 months. Reversal, right? The narrowing has opened up. So heart disease can be reversed by lifestyle. And these are the cholesterol numbers before and after. You see it dropped by a half almost, and here more than a half, the bad cholesterol. This is the total cholesterol. It's written up in a peer-reviewed journal. Now, don't forget, this is the most ideal picture, I'm sure. I'm sure there are a lot of other people that... But when you look at his numbers, this is what he showed. He showed there was 21 people who didn't do what they were told. I told you to do this, why didn't you do it? Well, they couldn't. They didn't like it. They couldn't stick on it. So he called them the non-adherents because they didn't follow it. The other 177 did follow it. And what was the result? Their outcomes were improved 4/5 of the case of those who stuck with the program. For those who didn't stuck, zippo, nothing. Nobody got benefit. And how were they improved? Their symptoms reduced. They even had reversal. Now, what about stability? Well, there was more in this because there was more left. But those who got worse, 2/3 of them got worse and only 10% got worse, meaning they had a stroke or disease progressed. So the story is that if you follow consistently, rigorously the program, it works. We just have to develop the appetite for eating more fiber-rich foods and less of the other types of foods. Let me just conclude now on the other little picture that I wanted to share with you. Let's see, it's 3 o'clock, so I have to be really quick. Why do people choose plant-based diets? One of the reasons is ethics, the way animals are treated. One of the reasons is health, which is what Adventists usually emphasize. But another reason is given here is environmental. And those of the church and our community that are in the younger generation, the millennials, guess what? They're not so much concerned about health as we are, but what are they concerned about? The environment. They want this planet to be around when they become adults. And this is real. That's a whole other series of lectures showing about the changes that have taken place in the world and the climate and so on. So, are we responsible for our environment? Absolutely. The air, the water, the soil, we want to keep it clean, not only for the animals and ourselves, but for future generations. This is some of my favourite pictures here, beautiful countryside. And the carbon footprint, as they call it, is what sort of impact does our life and our eating. Do you realise that to prepare food, to take it from the farm, to put it on your plate, takes energy and can change the environment because of fossil fuels that are involved? The whole food production system makes a difference. You'll see here greenhouse gas emissions occur at all stages, including food production, processing, packaging. Try to select foods that have as little packaging as possible, because packaging only contaminates and is unneeded if you can get around that. Avoid waste. Don't take more than you need to. Okay, this is a picture I took from University of Michigan, and you can see that the contribution that different foods make to greenhouse gas emissions. And you'll notice over here on the right side, eggs, vegetables, grains, fruits. They don't contribute much, but look at meat and dairy. Almost 80% of the greenhouse gases come from meat and dairy production. This is taken from another paper looking at low greenhouse gas emissions and high emissions and medium. And you'll see these are all animal foods and these are all plant foods, and the ones in the middle are a bit of either. So research tells us that a meat-based diet requires more non-renewable energy. And this gives you an example here. Non-vegetarian diets use almost 3 times more water, 2.5 times more energy, primary energy, fossil fuels, 13 times more fertilizer, and almost 1.5 times more pesticides than a vegetarian diet. And in terms of warming the planet, this was published 10 years ago, but it shows you nicely that eating plant-based diet, I've added this over here, I did the calculations for you, and this is compared to this meat eating, which is 100 grams, which is about 3.5 ounces a day. Greenhouse gas reduction by eating plant-based is 60% less. Wow. Regular vegetarians about 50%, and so on. So clearly, plant-based eating is not only good for us, but it's good for the environment, it's good for the planet. And just to look at one particular example, this is protein, meat versus beans, and you can see that in comparison to 1 kilogram of beef, to produce 1 kilogram of protein from kidney beans, 18 times less land, 10 times less water, 9 times less fuel, 12 times less fertilizer, 10 times less pesticide. And this is done by none other than Dr. Sabate at Loma Linda University. Okay? The methane gas produced by cattle has the same impact on global warming as the carbon dioxide produced from... You're too scared to read it, aren't you? The number is too staggering. The cattle, the methane that they burp or blow at the other end has the same effect on global warming as the carbon dioxide from 33 million cars. Well, some of you might be asking, you know, we don't want to drink milk, we'd like to use a plant-based milk or beverage. Does it make a difference? Well, nutrition-wise, there's a lot of difference. The soy is the best, no question about that. But if you're looking at the environment, we're talking about the environment right now, greenhouse gases and global warming. You'll notice the comparison here. This is comparing water and carbon dioxide emissions, these numbers here. And you can see that other than almonds are a real guzzler for water, and rice. They require a lot of water. But in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, they're all pretty much the same and a lot less than cow milk, which is, you can see, 3.2. So we come to the end of the story. Good for the planet, good for you. Eating a vegetarian diet or plant-based diet is not only the healthiest, it's anti-inflammatory, it's phytochemical rich in antioxidants, whatever you want to say, but it's also the most compassionate, the least expensive, and the least wasteful of Earth's resources. You might put your hand up and say, yeah, but a can of veggie links is not much different than a beefsteak or whatever. Well, if you compare a pound of dried beans that you soak and cook and then do the comparison, because that's what we should be eating, the difference is huge, right? Difference is huge. I'm not saying don't eat, I'm just making the comparison. So that's it. And these are 2 books that I've written that has a lot of the stuff in there, and I'm not selling them here or advertising, but if you want any more, this is what's available, and you can tell David sitting down the front here, and we can make some arrangement if you're interested in. So maybe you want some questions, comments, snide remarks, whatever is. I don't know that I can answer them, but if you make them easy, I'll promise to answer them. Is that a fair deal?
Yes.
Good.
Question and answer.
Thank you for your presentation.
I'm sorry?
I'm saying thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on. Is there a number, when it comes to wheat bread, is there a number that we need to look for because when you dealt with wheat bread, you had some numbers there. Is there something we need to look for to identify whether it is real wheat or it's sort of a fake wheat? Because I go in the stores and I pick up some bread, I see some bread and they say 100% wheat, but to me, they don't really look like 100% wheat.
It's so what? The bread that you find is...
Well, she wants to know the difference between bread and bread that's really 100% wheat.
All right. Look at the monitor there. Turn to the monitor. Right. So we have wheat bread, and you have these numbers versus refined wheat. I'm just asking, when we're looking at bread, examining bread, or trying to choose bread, is there something that we need to look for to identify if it's real whole wheat or it's not real whole wheat? Because the bread they don't say refined wheat, they say whole wheat, but my thing is that some whole wheat, to me, they don't look like real whole wheat. So my question to you is that is there some identifying thing that we need to try to observe to find out if it's real whole wheat, it's genuine whole wheat? Do you understand my question?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a good question. And the question, if you didn't all hear it, was how can we be sure the bread we're buying is whole wheat even if it doesn't look whole wheat? Well, we can't go by what it looks like, because you can put molasses in white bread and it can look brown. And there's a strain of wheat now that looks white even though it can be made into whole wheat. So you can't go by the colour because it can be tricky. So how do we go? The key is that food companies are forced to put onto the label, on the ingredient list, what they have used. And if the ingredient says wheat flour, then it's not whole wheat. If it says whole wheat, then it is whole wheat, but it may not be 100% whole wheat. You have to keep reading because the second ingredient might be wheat flour, so it may say whole wheat and then wheat flour, so that is partially whole wheat. But if it says on the label, so you don't go by the label names that say all natural. You ever seen all natural peanut butter and it's got palm oil and sugar and this and that, and yet they put natural, all natural. So you don't go by these coded words. You have to read carefully the label. And peanut butter, it just should say peanuts and salt or not salt. That's all. Okay, with bread, if it says whole wheat flour and nothing else except an oil and salt, then you know it's 100%. If it says whole wheat and then wheat flour, then it tells you that it's more than 50%, but it's not 100%. Whether it's 60 or 70 or 80, who knows? There's no way of knowing. So you have to trust, and we must trust the labels, because the labels have to be precise and specific, placed in the order, in the quantity in which they have added. So if salt comes last, that means salt is the smallest quantity in the bread. If whole wheat flour comes first, it's the major, and generally more than 50%. Does that answer the question? But what type of wheat? Well, they'll usually specify whether it's spelt flour or some other heritage flour. People are into these heritage vegetables and heritage grains these days because they believe they have special health properties, and some of them may do. Some of them are against GM, and these heritage things don't have GM, and so that's another reason people will cast them off. There's a question down the back here.
Yes, two questions. Well, it's two questions. First question is, what are some of the benefits that...
I'm going to have to come closer. My hearing's not
Can you
good.
hear me better now?
Huh?
Can you hear me better now?
I can hear, but I hope you to be. I have to articulate
Okay.
better when I'm.
So you mentioned that soy milk is superior to the other milks.
Nutritionally.
Yeah, nutritionally. What are some of the benefits that it has that are better than oat milk, maybe rice milk? And also, what would you say to someone who's afraid of consuming too much estrogen in their diet? Like, what would you tell them?
Okay, it's a good question. He was asking about why I mentioned soya milk and why it's better than oat milk or rice milk or almond milk or, almond milk is number one popular in the US. But most almond milks, not all of them because some of the companies have got smart lately, but most of the almond milk have 1 gram of protein per cup. And soy has 8, and dairy has 8. And so the government recommendations, which you're familiar with, called the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, or DGA, they recommend so many servings of different foods, and they recommend dairy or soy. They don't mention any of the others because it's known that soy has this property. Many of them are calcium fortified and vitamin D fortified, not all of them. They're like 2 out of 3 are fortified. So you have to, again, it comes back to reading labels. You go to Trader Joe's and you think, wow, this is the place where all the good food is. And you put your hand up to grab some soya milk and it says soya beans and water. And the naive person says, yeah, simple ingredients, only 2 ingredients. But it has no calcium, no vitamin D fortification, so it's missing sometimes. There are other products that do, but I just chose that one because I saw it last week when I was going. Oat milk is also very good, and you can buy oat milk that's been fortified with the things it needs to be, and sometimes they add pea protein. And pea protein is like split pea, the yellow pea, and they put protein in it to bring it up to 6 or 8 grams. So if you read the label and you see that those oat milks have 8 grams of protein. You can add that to the good guys as well. Coconut milk is high in saturated fat, so you have to be careful of using that based on coconut cream. A little bit of coconut is fine with the fiber, but if you're eating a lot of the cream, then you're getting a ton of saturated fat. Now, you mentioned estrogen. Soybean doesn't have estrogen in it. That's the mindset that the public usually has, and that's why soya milk is number 3. Almond, oat, and then soy milks. And the reason is it used to be number 1, but there's been so much adverse publicity about estrogens that soy has been pushed down. But there isn't estrogen in soy. There is a phytochemical. It's called isoflavone. There's a family of them. Genistein, diadzine are the 2 most important ones. And these have estrogen-like activities in the body. They also have, and this is what most people miss, anti-estrogen-like effects. And these work at the cell, and they dictate the cell. Bone cell is different to breast cell. Bone cell, it acts like estrogen and causes the bones to retain mineral. The breast, it acts anti-estrogen, and so it suppresses breast cancer. They're very opposite to what most people think. So the whole idea that they have estrogen is, it's clouded by the details, and the details is they are estrogen-like phytochemicals, but their action in the body is multiple, and there isn't any known effect that's negative that soy has except on thyroid, and many foods do have a negative effect on thyroid. So if you are one of those that have thyroid medication, you don't have to stop soy, but you have to be careful you don't take too much. And as good as soy is, I'll say, eating soy 3 times a day is not necessarily a balanced approach. 1 or 2 servings a day is fine, like a drink of soy milk and a serving of tofu at a later meal is okay, but if you're eating soy all the time, no, that's not. Does that answer the question? Okay. I'm sorry? Soya milk is the best in general, but again, you have to read the label, because the example I gave of that one product in Trader Joe's, which is soya milk, it has the protein and it's soy and it has the isoflavones, but it isn't calcium fortified and vitamin D fortified and vitamin B12 fortified. Those are the 3 nutrients we get from dairy, and it's not easy to get in our diet from other foods in the quantity we need if we're not using dairy. So they should be fortified with calcium and D and B12. And you can read the label, it'll tell you right on there. But almond milk typically, I don't like the taste, and it's a water guzzler. It really hurts the environment. And something else they tell me, the beekeepers, is the the sprays that they use on almond trees is very detrimental to the bees. They have bee death quite seriously. The bee farmers move from the south to the north as spring breaks, and they hate going through the almond growing areas because they lose so many of their bees. So it's harsh on the environment. But it also, they tend to have 1 gram of protein. So don't feed it to your children. You can drink it if you like it, but don't expect. Yeah, if it's fortified, and any of them can be as good as soy milk if they have extra protein added and if they're fortified. Most people buy them according to taste and cost. I've talked to people in the grocery store. Why are you buying that? Why did you choose that one when there's so many here? Well, the price is good and I just like it. Have you read the label? No. Or maybe the label tells you it's poor nutrition. They don't care. I'm sorry, I'm not degrading. I'm just reporting what I hear because I'm interested why people make choices, because I'm in the business of educating people to make better choices. So I like to know what choices they're making so I can shift them from something that's not so good to a little better. Is that okay? Now there was a question here.
I have a question on genetically altered food. Genetically altered.
GM,
Yes. Could you explain more about that, and is it quite common here?
is it what? Is it
What-
good or not good?
Well, explain the term and what process does it go through?
Okay, GM, is genetically modified, is a microbiological engineering technique that people circumvent the normal breeding mechanism of making new species or growing and stuff. It speeds up the process, and so you can insert into a plant a characteristic, a trait that protects the plant against insects, against slugs, or against heavy rain, so that farmers don't lose their crops, or that they'll improve their harvest yield. So there's a lot of beneficial properties that scientists and farmers associate with this GM, genetic modification. The alarm bells went off when people were saying, just like they did with COVID, rightly or wrongly, I'm not getting into that, that genetic nature of people change when this altered genes, and I don't want to go there with that, but certainly we can look at what are the long-term effects of people who eat genetically modified foods versus not modified, and we don't know. There's no. They do experiments, short-term experiments with insects or laboratory animals, and get all kinds of bizarre behaviours. But in terms of human beings, we don't know. You have people on the right and on the left screaming at each other. They're harmful. They do nothing. Even in the church, nutritionists, scientists in the church argue about it. I'm in the middle of the road, and I say, wait and see. If I have a choice of buying a food that isn't GM, like the soya milk I buy, it's from soya beans that haven't been genetically modified. It's not more expensive than any of the others. I'll buy that just to be sure. When there's more data, we can throw away GM foods. But in America, it's very hard. In Europe, it's a lot easier because they're more fussy. But in the US, a lot of foods have been genetically modified. So it's very hard to run away from this and to trace them through the supply line to make sure that it's pure, not genetically modified, is very difficult. So it's uncertain. Leave it alone if you can, but don't worry. Don't sit at night lie in bed at night stewing about it, or even at the table stewing about it. You'll do more harm that way than you will eating. Does that comfort you?
So research found that they don't have a conclusion whether it's good or bad, GMO?
There's no clear answer.
Yeah.
No clear answer. It's just, if you feel uncomfortable, then don't eat them.
Okay.
If you don't care, then it probably won't harm you. Maybe 10 years from now, if the world is still lasting, we'll know more information. But at this moment, it's ambivalent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more question. If not, the session is ended. Thank you, Dr. Craig,
You're welcome.
for your time. This is another certificate for your
Oh,
office. Thank you so
another
much.
certificate.
Yes. The last one,
Oh, thank you.
last one we had to mail it to
Yes,
you, and you receive it
yes.
in
In good shape.
good shape.
Nothing broken, nothing chipped,
Okay.
with Los Alamitos love
Thank
written
you so
all
much.
over it.
And
Thank you. These are the faithful who have stayed by even till 3:15.
Dr. Craig will be leaving Loma Linda to go back home in Walla Walla at the end of this month. And every year he will be here between January and March. So hopefully next year we will have him back with us.
And if
again.
you have any question, you can text or email David and he'll pass it on to me.
Yes.
And we'll answer it if it's easy.
Yes. Let's have a prayer. Our most gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the health message that you've been teaching us to keep ourselves healthy, to serve you. And because our body is your temple, we have to follow your instruction and keep us healthy all our life to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Enjoy your food.
Healthy woman's multivitamin.
What?
A healthy woman